Welcome to MCN and welcome to the launch of the new Yamaha MT-07 and the Yamaha MT-07Y AMT, which is a semi-automatic gearbox. The MT-07 is obviously a very important bike for Yamaha. It's a very popular bike for Yamaha, and it's also been pretty much top of the class for the best part of a decade. But as a result, the competition is fierce for this market with some great offerings from rival manufacturers. So the question really is, can Yamaha stay top of the tree with this latest evolution of the MT-07? The two bikes we've got on test, obviously the standard MT-07, which is £7,700, and then the AMT version, which is the automatic gearbox, comes in at £8,050. So we're in Alicante, in the hills above Benidorm. We've got 180 kilometres of epic riding, really twisty, really fitting in this sort of whole ethos of a user-friendly but fun motorcycle. But before we get into that, let's understand a little bit more about the bike. This is now the fourth generation of the MT-07, and Yamaha claim it's the biggest evolution of the bike since its launch in 2014. At its heart is a popular CP2 twin-cylinder 690cc motor with 270-degree crank, which puts out 73.4 brake horsepower and 50 pound-foot of torque. The biggest update in the engine department is it now has ride-by-wire to meet Euro 5 Plus regulations, and this has also smoothed out the power and torque curve, especially between 3 and 7,000 RPM. In a world where noise is becoming an increasing factor, Yamaha have worked to reduce the noise level to the outside world, but have instead used a redesigned airbox, and there are now 4 strategically placed holes in the tank area to actually give that sound to the rider. The gearbox has been reworked to give quicker and smoother shifts, and there is now also, for the first time, a slipper clutch. It has a new 3-phase generator to ensure there is enough power to run the ever-increasing amount of electronics that are getting used on bikes nowadays, from heated clothing through to phones and sat-navs. But arguably, the biggest area of evolution is the chassis, and it now has bigger 41mm KYB front forks, which are adjustable for preload, and a reworked rear shock. Whilst the frame looks very similar to the outgoing model, everything is new, apart from the headstock area. There's also a new swing arm and reinforced pivot point, as well as new triple clamps. Yamaha claim the new chassis is 13% stiffer, but they've managed to achieve this without increasing weight. The chassis weighs 14.8 kilograms, with the bike's wet weight, fully fueled, 100% fully fueled tank, now coming in at 183 kilograms. It has new spin-forged wheels, which have reduced the weight by 480 grams, and this is of course unsprung weight, which lowers inertia. These wheels come with Dunlop Sport Max Q5A tyres, and it's now a 180 section real tyre. For the first time, the MT-07 gets radial calipers, which are by Adfix, with twin 298mm discs up front and a 245mm disc at the rear. It comes with a neat, classy looking 5-inch TFT dash, which has 4 themes, as well as phone connectivity that can also run Garmin software for navigation. Now that it's got the ride-by-wire, there are 3 different power modes: custom, street and sport, and all that's controllable through a new 5-way joystick, and it also has self-cancelling indicators for the first time. It keeps its 13-litre fuel tank and 805mm seat height, but the footrests are now 10mm lower to give bigger riders a bit more room, and also the bars are wider, lower and further back, just to change the dynamic and positioning of the bike. To ensure it still works for shorter riders, the seat or waist of the bike is now 25mm narrower, which helps ensure smaller riders can get their feet firmly on the ground. Because the MT-07 has been around for over 10 years, there is a huge selection of aftermarket official parts from Yamaha. It totals 96 different components. 32 of them are now new for the 2025 model. So we've just got to our lunch stop. We've done about 110 kilometres, been on the bikes for a few hours. I mean, the roads are amazing. I don't know if anyone's been lucky enough to sort of ride out here, but why have a straight if you can have a corner? Because literally it's just corner after corner after corner after corner, you know, sort of second, third gear stuff. I remember previous models of the MT-07 I've ridden have been quite, almost like a little bit under suspended, a little bit bouncy. This is clearly an area they focused on. The chassis is stiffer, it's got a better quality suspension, KYB front forks, 41mm KYB front forks, and the support feels there. It feels well balanced. Yamaha sort of said in their presentation last night that it's sort of almost like a more mature ride, and I kind of agree. I think that it feels more poised, it feels more balanced, but it is still fun. It's an engaging bike to ride, very easy to change direction, very responsive. The power's nice, obviously ride by wire now. The throttle connection is good. It feels really clean, feels really nice if you're having to sort of hold a constant throttle, especially on some of these corners where they're quite blind and you just want to exactly know what's happening with the throttle, coming on or off the throttle or on a constant throttle. And so far it's been pretty glitch free, which is impressive. I've also spent a little bit of time on the AMT, the automatic transmission. Verdict's still out for me on that. I need to spend more time on it. It definitely has its pros, but for me it also has cons, and it's the first time I've actually used the AMT system, so I think I need to get a little bit more time on the bike before sort of giving a verdict. So yeah, we're gonna have some lunch now, and then we've pretty much got the same amount of riding again this afternoon. And the great thing about these roads is you can really understand how a bike's working, because they're quite demanding, you know, up and down, left, right, you know, just constant corners. A great proving ground for a bike like this, and a lot of fun. I'll let you know how we get on later. So, come to the end of our day. We've actually been on the bikes probably about 6 hours in total, been out for about 8 hours with a few stops and obviously some photo shoots along the way, then about 200 kilometres. It is a twisty part of the world, so great riding on these bikes, you know, this constant switchback corners, ups and downs, amazing views, you know, real kind of riding paradise. And also the road conditions are just absolutely A-class. I just want to pick up the main points and sort of essentially answer some of the questions about this bike. Picking up on what is the heart of this bike is the famous CP2 motor. It's an engine that was launched in this bike way back in 2014. It's obviously evolved over that time, but it's essentially the same unit. And I have to say, it still feels an amazingly characterful engine. It's playful, it's enjoyable, it's got great levels of power and torque without ever being too much. I mean, this bike in 2014 was actually MCN Bike of the Year. They've sold 140,000 of these bikes over the last 10 years. You know, it is a key, important bike for Yamaha. You have to remember that when this bike came out, Yamaha were not in a particularly good place. Their big sports bikes weren't really selling, and the MT range, starting with the MT-07, really changed the fortunes of Yamaha and, you know, helped it continue to be one of the top manufacturers in the world and continue to be so. And therefore, it's quite apparent by the amount of engineers here, the amount of Japanese engineers, the amount of development riders. You know, it might be a sort of a smaller class bike, but it is critical to the success of their company, and they take it very, very seriously. One of the big changes on this bike is the fact that it's got ride-by-wire. This is to meet the Euro 5 Plus regulations, and obviously just to sort of update that bike and bring it into the latest sort of generation. And I have to say that it's impressive. The way that it fuels, either coming right from the bottom of the throttle all the way through the rev range and also shutting off, it's impressive. There genuinely is kind of nothing to really fault. It's really clean, and combined with that characterful CP2 motor, you can ride quite aggressively and be in like second, third gear, really sort of feel like you're pushing on, But by the same token, you can be up a gear, drive out of corners without any drama, no risk of spitting you off or back moving. You just feel like you've got a lot of grip, you feel like you've got a lot of control in your hand, real lovely throttle connection, which is sometimes missing with a lot of motorbikes, and they have absolutely nailed it. And I think, it's down to the fact that, it's a 74 horsepower motorbike and it's got some great electronics and great ride-by-wire technology in terms of the mapping. In terms of the mapping, you've got a sport mode and you've got a street mode, then you've got a customizable mode. I've played around in both. For me, I spent most of the day in sport mode because we were doing quite sort of sporty riding, as you'll see. I didn't notice a huge difference between the two. Like I said, the fueling seems really clean in both maps, so nothing really to sort of choose from there. The chassis is another area of the bike that's been given a lot of attention. It's 13% stiffer, even though the chassis looks very, very similar to the outgoing model. Yamaha are saying pretty much everything is changed, including the swing arm, apart from the area around the headstock of the bike. It feels very planted, it feels very balanced, and a lot of that is to do with the uprated suspension. 41mm KYB front forks. It's a pretty plush ride, to be perfectly honest. They're obviously not super high budget, they're only adjustable for preload, but they work. You feel like you're getting real nice support all the way through the stroke, and where previous versions of this bike could get a little bit sort of bouncy, where you'd sort of hit a bump and it would unload, this feels much more measured and much more controlled, whether you're going down stroke or coming back off the bottom. So that's a real plus. That combined with the rear shock as well. I think the previous model didn't have, even though they'd improved the forks, maybe the rear shock wasn't in line with those developments, whereas I think now feels like it's very much working in harmony. The new stiffer chassis, better suspension all round has just given it a real sort of plush, very controlled ride, which is, when you're on sort of challenging roads, is very, very confidence inspiring. Being a naked bike, I think the riding position is very important, because you've obviously got no screen to hide behind, and it's quite a small bike, so depending on the size of your rider, I'm 5'8", 5'9", so I had no issues with the space of the bike. The seat height remains the same at 805mm, but the footrests are actually 10mm lower. I had no issue with sort of comfort on the day, even though we spent a lot of time on the bike. I felt like even when we were going faster and you were getting quite a lot of wind noise, I felt like I was in a good position to be kind of braced. So I was never having any dramas, any issues of being sort of, forced off the back of the bike with wind blast. So I think they've done a pretty good job with this. It feels kind of complementing the suspension, complementing the chassis. It feels quite a natural position. It's not super aggressive, but it's a comfortable place that you can spend a lot of time in, as we've actually done today. One of the things I'm not so sure about is they have concentrated on narrowing the bike, especially sort of at the waist of the bike where your legs are, where your legs come down. On one hand, this is great because at my height, I can get both feet flat on the ground. If you're maybe a new rider or a less experienced rider, having that sort of assurance of being able to have your feet firmly planted on the ground is obviously a good thing. And even if you were shorter, I think you'd be able to certainly get 1 foot on the ground without any kind of drama. The tank is slightly wider at the front, but the actual waist of the bike is narrower. I actually think they've gone a bit too far for someone that doesn't have any issue with the seat height. Obviously being narrow, it means you can get your feet on the ground, but I almost found that when I was sort of pushing on a little bit, I wanted to be able to grip the bike. I wanted to be able to grip the bike under heavy braking, and I just felt there wasn't enough there for me to actually grip on. So that's one thing that I'm not quite sure they've done so well with the ergonomics. I think maybe they've just gone a little bit too far with that. As you can see from the bike, this is the first MT-07 comes with radial calipers. I have to say, it's just been braking has been something I haven't had to worry about at any point during the day. It's either one finger or two fingers for sort of heavy braking, and combined with the rear brake, I've been able to feel like I can really get the bike to sit under braking, really sort of squat down and just have so much in reserve. Even when you're sort of approaching a corner quite quick, I just felt like I could just stop the bike exactly where I wanted to. So sort of great control and great feel, literally can't fault that sort of feedback you're getting from them. It feels just very confidence inspiring without being overly aggressive. They're not like super sharp that you're scared to use them. You know, there's a few times into corners where, you know, you've had to sort of trail brake in a little bit, you know, because you obviously don't know the roads, but just no dramas at all. You just feel like you've got a lot of control, but a lot of power there should you ever need it. This is also the first MT-07 that comes with a slipper clutch. Being a twin, you know, it obviously generates a reasonable amount of engine braking. I've actually found that a little bit wanting. I feel like the slipper clutch doesn't do enough. I just think it doesn't give enough slip. When you're changing down through the box, it feels quite an aggressive brake still. I personally would rather have a bit more of a freer flowing engine on the way into corners and then be able to sort of govern the speed a little bit through my own braking. Whereas with this, it feels like, you know, when you are actually sort of slapping the throttle shut, you're just getting a little bit of movement, especially if you're using a little bit of front brake. You've just unloaded the bike a little bit and the back can get a little bit loose. It feels a little bit grabby. So I feel like the slipper clutch is a good thing. It's a good addition to the bike, but I just feel like the settings could be freer. And then I think you'd really be able to get the benefits of a slipper clutch and just be able to sort of, you know, regulate your own braking and the way you come into corner without having that sort of engine braking holding you back. So we've also been using the YAMT model, which is Yamaha's automatic gearbox, basically. So no clutch lever, as you can see there. And you've got a very intuitive paddle switch on the left-hand bar there. And it's my first time I've used it. I've done quite a lot of miles with the Honda Africa Twin, with the DCT. It's not an alien concept to me, but it's the first time I've actually used the Yamaha system. It's a lot more direct. It feels a lot more like a conventional gearbox in terms of conventional changes. Yamaha claim that it makes a gear change consistently in 0.1 seconds. I said earlier that the verdict was kind of out for me with whether I liked it or not. Without sitting on the fence, I think I'm still there, to be honest. But I actually think on one hand, what an incredible thing for less experienced riders. What an incredible tool to give new riders, less experienced riders, something that a great gearbox that can either run completely automatically or you can have control over with up and down shifting, you know, just with a paddle, with no clutch to worry about. You know, obviously we're more dexterous with our hands. So, you know, just having the shift there rather than using your foot to change gear. What a great thing to bring that to motorcycling and hopefully encourage more people to ride motorbikes because they feel less intimidated. You know, you've got to remember, this is a bike that is very much aimed at sort of new riders, but crosses those boundaries beautifully, that in terms that you can have a more experienced rider and they can have a lot of fun on it. So on that hand, I think it's fantastic. For me personally, the gear change, it's still quite a snatch to slow down, and you can use a gearbox. You can be in exactly the gear you want it to be. Absolutely no dramas at all. If anyone's used a well set up quick shifter on a bike with an auto blipper, for me, this is not as satisfying to use. It feels more kind of abrupt, it feels more clunky, whereas a well set up quick shifter, it's just beautiful the way you can just throw gears at a bike and it's just bang, 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 and also on downshift as well. So for me, it's not as good as a well set up quick shifter and auto blipper. But like I've said, you know, sort of playing devil's advocate, what a great thing to give, you know, less experienced riders or riders that just want to be not so involved and engaged with every single gear change. One of the big questions is going to be, you know, where this sits within the market. It's obviously a competitive class. Like we said, Yamaha have dominated really the sales charts for the last 10 years. And like I've said earlier, this is a very important bike and they obviously want to continue that. The competition, you've got the Honda CB 750 Hornet, the Triumph Trident, and the Suzuki GSX-8S, all of which come in sub 8,000. The MT-07 comes in at 7,700, so not a lot in it. Obviously, until we put in a group test together where we'll understand how they fare against each other, because the Triumph and Suzuki, Triumph especially, very, very good motorbike. So the competition is stiff because these manufacturers want a piece of the MT-07 pie. It's just whether Yamaha can do enough to keep that front of the sales charts. The only thing I'm questioning, having had a full day on the bike now, is it a better motorbike than the outgoing MT-07? 100%. The way that the ride-by-wire is working, the way the fueling is really accurate, the way the chassis is more supporting, the way the suspension's better, I think it's a more balanced package, and I think it is definitely another step. It's a better motorbike. I guess the only thing I am kind of questioning is, has the fact that it's become more accomplished, has the fact that it's become more mature motorbike, a bike that is appealing to a more accomplished rider because it is that much plusher and it's that much more accurate, have they lost a little bit of the kind of the fun ingredient, the way that the old MT-07 maybe got a little bit loose over bumps, or maybe the suspension wasn't quite as good? It made it a very, very fun motorbike. So is it better? Is it more capable? Yes. Is it as fun as the outgoing model? I think I'd love to back them to understand it, but I've been riding all day on the bike and it's absolutely put a smile on my face pretty much throughout the whole day. So in conclusion, I think Yamaha have unquestionably upped the game with this bike. It is still well priced. It's, like I've said, a couple of £100 cheaper than the competition. And I think with the changes they've made, it's stepped up. It's the next level in terms of the poise of the bike, the way that it handles, the way that it's suspended, and the way that it's fueling. I think they've done a very good job of making it a more accomplished motorcycle. And even though I said earlier, is it as much fun? We've had a great day on either the YAMT, which is my first time on that, or the standard MT-07. So there is no doubt about it. If you get the opportunity to ride one of these, you won't be disappointed. It's a truly engaging motorcycle. It's not crazy fast. It's one of these bikes that you feel like you can really exploit. You can exploit the handling, exploit the grip, and you can exploit the power characteristics, which are super friendly and safe, essentially. There's nothing in the rev range that's going to catch you out. And I think that's what makes it such a great motorcycle for anyone, from like a young rider, someone learning, someone's first big bike, all the way through to seriously advanced riders. If you like riding a motorbike, you're going to ride in an MT-07. Right, so that's the end of our video and end of our test. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. To see more content like this, to see our group tests, to see our road tests, to see our launch videos, like and subscribe, and we'll be delivering more of this type of content.